Welcome to the Bookers Alliance podcast, where we hold the pencil and the pencil is power. Coming at you right now is your host, Marky Mark, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Donaldson. Join us as we discuss the ever-changing landscape of professional wrestling. So hang on tight, you jabronis, and enjoy the ride. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for joining the Bookers Alliance podcast today. Come on in, bring yourself up a ringside seat. Hey, maybe even, buy you some popcorn this go around because, the money is flowing, and that's what we're going to talk about today, Frank.
It looks like it. I mean, get yourself a full set of concessions now. You can get some candy, buy yourself a drink, like you said, merch. Get your popcorn ready.
Some merch.
Yeah, I mean, you do. Yeah, don't forget to go to the concession. Be sure to tip your waitresses and bartenders. I mean, because right now it seems like we're booming.
We are booming, as Adam Cole says, boom.
All right, boom.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about, are we truly in the next wrestling boom? And what we're meaning by that is, obviously in the 80s, the 80s was a heyday for wrestling.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan kind of ushered that era in. It just exploded. You had the wrestling and rock connection. Mm-hmm. So everything was kind of exploding and going around. Hit kind of another little valley before we got onto our next peak in the Attitude Era and the Monday Night War era.
Yeah.
So, it boomed then. Business was incredible back then.
Mm-hmm. Then WCW folded, and then we kind of, I don't know, it got kind of weird after that because it didn't really drop, it didn't really fall off. I mean, viewership fell off, let's not get it wrong, but, the interest didn't really fall off as a whole. You just started getting more of your diehard fans.
Right.
The more casual fan, in the Hulk Hogan era, like you said, it was mostly kids.
Yep.
It was kids that just loved, the superhero aspect of it, and, they had their people that they looked up to. The Attitude Era, those kids had kind of grown up, so now you were kind of hitting them same fans in that 18 to 49, 18 to 35 demo. They kind of fit in there. Well, then, after the WCW folded, and we only had one promotion, we kind of, it got slow again. Like you said, it didn't die off because diehard fans are going to be diehard fans,
right.
But we were getting 7 million viewers and now we're getting 3. So, I mean, there's obviously a shift.
Yeah. And, that's kind of attributed to some other things that, started happening. When you buy out the competition, it takes a good minute for things to start building back up, and
and it doesn't make your creative juices flow as much.
It doesn't.
When there's no competition, it's easy to just kind of rest on your laurels and just start doing, going out there and just doing business and calling it one. So,
So you had your TNA that kind of sprung up. The Jarretts kind of pulled that out, and
where'd they pull that out of, sir?
Dixie Carter.
There you go. There you go.
We got to keep it PG. It PG. But you had TNA kind of pull up, and get started, and it started catching on. You had some good matches happening.
Yep.
You got to see your AJ Styles Samoa Joe rivalry. Mm-hmm. You got to see your Beer Money versus Motor City Machine Guns rivalry.
Yep. You saw the introduction to CM Punk. Nobody had ever seen him on a television before, so you got introduced to a lot of guys that turned out to be, great wrestlers, turned out to be main eventers at WWE later on.
Main Event Mafia kind of come up.
A lot of good stuff came out of that, but and they got over 1 million viewers every week. Now, don't get me wrong, television obviously has changed, right, from the mid or the early 2000s till today. But let's call a spade a spade. If AEW was able to get over 1 million viewers every week, I mean, it'd be high fives all around. They'd be profiting, exponential numbers based on where they're at now. So there was still interest. Obviously TNA never got to WWE heights, of course, but
no.
They kept kind of that obviously there was interest for an alternative brand. There was interest in the alternative.
And we do recognize TNA is still around. It's known as Impact Wrestling now.
Yeah.
It's not the same, unfortunately. Now, I will say this. I've, watched it here and there, where I can, and, it's not the same as it was.
No, I mean, they used to get a lot of bigger characters. It was kind of like that was okay, you left WWE, you go right to TNA. They were like the WWE
right.
outcasts. They were the land of forgotten toys for WWE superstars. You left WWE, you got future endeavored, whatever reason you left, you found your way to TNA, so they were able to get all of that immediate talent, that was fresh off TV. Now AEW gets that. I mean, let's be honest. Tony Khan's checks are a lot bigger than TNA's. So if you're going to leave, the powerhouse of WWE, you're more likely to look at, AEW. Now, there are wrestlers like Trinity. She left WWE, right. Stayed out for a while. She went to Impact because she saw opportunity for herself there. And I get that, but she's also not the mainstream, breadwinner of her household. Her husband's part of the biggest storyline in all of wrestling history.
Right.
So he's doing okay. You know what I mean? So she had that flexibility to go where she wanted, to whereas other wrestlers, hey, you got Bill, you done got accustomed to a certain lifestyle. You're going to have to maintain that lifestyle, and TNA might not be the place for you. So unfortunately, they're just like the cast off of AEW's introduction, where they kind of took that pool of talent that they used to have.
Yeah. So as they say in life, everything is cyclical. So, we went through the boom in the 80s. You went through the boom in the Monday Night War and the Attitude Era. So, it kind of once WCW folded, they bought out WWE bought out the competition. You went through a 15, 20-year period where
just par for the course. They had to put on a product every week, so they put it out there. You had splashes here or there. There were interesting angles, interesting stories, but nothing compelling. There wasn't anything where you couldn't miss. Like if you missed the SmackDown from, let's say, 2005 to 2020,
yep.
If you missed the SmackDown in there, you were okay. If you missed a Raw, you were okay. You didn't, if you saw it, great. If you didn't, you watch a couple highlights, on the next show, you'll be fine.
So, like I said, everything was cyclical, and then you had Impact or TNA that tried to start up, didn't really catch on, didn't really get it. But then you had two other things that kind of developed over the years that really started catching fire. First things first, you had a grassroots movement in the development of AEW.
Yeah.
So we're about 5 years into this thing now.
Yeah. So I think we just hit 4. I think they just passed their 4-year anniversary.
So we're kind of into this a little while now. So AEW started out grassroots, and I would honestly say they're kind of still grassroots.
They're 4 years in. I mean,
right.
Don't get me wrong. As we're recording here, we're recording before, All In? I mean, so, they're about to have a WrestleMania-esque style pay-per-view, with over 75,000 people in attendance. So they probably can't be grassroots after that. I mean, at that point, you're as major as you're going to get, so we can't, they're going to start losing the benefit of the doubt, coming up here pretty soon. But yeah, up until then, I mean, they're only 4 years in, think about when we were at 4 years of WWE, we were at WrestleMania, 3?
Yeah.
So that was when they really hit their big boom, was that 4th year, the Vince McMahon Jr. era at WrestleMania 3. And AEW's kind of right in that same trajectory,
Yep.
And we say they've had a lot of missteps along the way, but let's be honest, WWE had a lot of missteps along the way too. They just weren't televised.
Gobbledygooker.
Everything, well, that happened before WrestleMania, after WrestleMania 3, but it was all in that same vein of thought. Right. But no, what I mean in the formative years of WWE, they had a lot of mistakes too. It just wasn't on TV.
No.
Back then, you would get the pre-taped weekend shows, and you were only dealing with, at that time, 2 pay-per-views a year. It wasn't until 88 when they started out with the fake Royal Rumble, and then 89 with the pay-per-view Rumble. Up until then, I mean, in 87 when they were hitting WrestleMania 3, they only had that and Survivor Series. That was it. So, you weren't able to see all the growing pains that they had. AEW, you see all the growing pains. So they get a lot of negative talking. Don't get me wrong, we do it too. We crap on AEW every now and again.
Our hands ain't clean.
Yeah, so, but the fact of the matter is that it's just because in this world of social media and all that, everything's visual.
Right.
You can see everybody's mistake. You fall out of the bed in the morning, there's a likelihood somebody done caught that on camera, and you're going to end up on YouTube tonight. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
AEW, as much as we do give them drama for their, again, growing pains, it's not unlikely. So, they're where they need to be right now, especially having this huge event coming.
So with them kind of springing up, that's part of, a catalyst. But the second catalyst that I could identify would be how it kind of sprang from within the walls of the WWE, and that was with NXT.
Yeah.
So, the thought behind NXT was instead of, trying to look at, all these not indie stars or whatnot and try to, bring them in and put them in there and see if they're going to work, why not bring them in and try to cultivate them?
Yeah. Train them
into the WWE style of work.
The TV style.
And, again, not trying to bash any other product or anything like that, but I'm sorry, you're not going to find a better produced, better well-rounded product out there than a WWE product.
No, that doesn't exist. Unfortunately, the way WWE puts on a show,
can't match it.
We're just coming out of SummerSlam, and with the production, the quality that they had at SummerSlam, you're not going to see that anywhere else. You're just not.
No.
AEW has more money than WWE Liquid, but it doesn't matter how much money they pump in there because WWE is so centered on wrestling, to whereas the Khan family, they got their hands in a lot of pans.
Right.
They can't just say, okay, well, yeah, we got $9 billion. Let's put it all into wrestling. WWE can do that. They just got a $9 billion contract, and if they had to, they could literally sink every penny of it into their production quality. I mean, the Super Bowl isn't on WWE's production quality. I mean, there's nothing that's being produced in that same format. Now, yeah, movies, obviously, the Avengers look better than WWE, of course.
Right.
But they also spend, $100 billion for 3 hours. WWE's 52 weeks a year, 2 shows a week in that, plus a pay-per-view, they're running 200 shows a year. If you had 200 Avengers movies a year, they would look like crap. So let's be honest.
Right.
But WWE still puts their production quality out there. So, with all that time. But again, like I said, $9 billion. I mean, if that ain't telling you we're in a boom of the wrestling era,
right,
then I don't know what is.
So enough of a boom to where, Hunter's idea was the Performance Center, building a place where they can come in, they get the promo training, they get the in-ring training, you get to work around the television crew. I mean, it goes further than the actual athletes that is training at the Performance Center. You've got production guys, camera guys that
everybody's
are training.
learning.
Referees are training. Yep. I mean, announcers are. I mean, just all kinds of stuff.
Everybody's learning. So there's always something in the pot.
Right.
What they always say, if one guy falls down, the next guy steps up. Well, they've got a whole, like you said, they've got a whole conglomerate in the back waiting to step up. So there's probably 40 guys back there waiting to get in the wrestling ring. And like you just said, there's probably 20 guys in production back there.
And it's not like that, that you've got some scruffs down there teaching these kids. I mean, you've got Sean, you've got Hunter that, before he
Kevin Dunn's been down there.
Kevin Dunn, you got.
I'm sure Vince has had his hand in some, they're running stuff by him too. Cause again, you got to train these guys up. If you're training them up one way and the events don't like it, well, now you don't waste it all that time. So you're not doing that.
You've had people like Taker stop by and be a coach. You've had, Kurt Angle stop by and be a coach. So it's a place where these young wrestlers are coming in and maybe not even young. Maybe they've just been on the indie scene for a while.
I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, even the indie scene's booming right now. When they say that let's say WWE is coming into town this weekend. I mean, 20 other indie shows latch onto that, and they sell out all weekend. So I mean, what do they say when the tide rises, all ships float or what? So WWE makes the tide rise because I mean they're so hot right now. They made the platform for an AEW to even be created. Because, they kept wrestling hot. They kept interest in wrestling. Even if it was, I don't like this style of wrestling, but I still like wrestling. Well, now you like the alternative. So, they were able to open up the door for whether they wanted to or not, open up the door for an AEW to be created, open up the door for an Impact to be created because there was that desire for competition after WCW was gone. And I mean, hell, they've opened up the door for countless amounts of indie promotions to open, because they kind of piggyback off where WWE's going.
You got Ring of Honor, you got Evolve.
You've got the local, we got AML right out here with us. I mean, everywhere you go, you can probably find 5 wrestling promotions that are operating, and they all, like next year, the WrestleMania is going to be in Philly. All those shows will be down there. Absolutely. They'll run every bingo hall in Philly, ECW style, to get an event going. And I mean, you're going to have 200,000 wrestling fans in town that weekend. So you're going to sell out. You know, that people want to go. They're interested.
Yeah. And that leads me to my final point about, you know, are we in the next wrestling boom? You've got WWE is thriving. You've got other companies that are thriving, even if it is because of WWE thriving. Yep. You know, they're kind of piggybacking off of their success.
Well, they're smart.
They're smart. But now you also have the internet and streaming platforms are on a different level and unheard of what it was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is not a time that you could go on the internet, go on YouTube, hit a streaming platform, and not see some form of wrestling. It's out there. Yeah. So much so, matter of fact, I was messing with Plex the other night, going through the live channels that's on Plex, and there's actually a pro wrestling network on Plex.
Wow.
That is showing indie shows that may only have 50 people in the audience.
Yeah, there you go.
Doesn't matter. No, they're still there. It's
just the product.
And you know who's on those that they're showing? Willow from AEW, Vikingo from AAA.
Yeah, a lot of guys that you may have seen, but you can't find. Like you said, they're out there.
They're out there.
You just got to find where they're at. And sometimes you just got to keep looking.
So now you've got all of this kind of coming together in this perfect storm, if you will. Mm-hmm. And now the question is, we saw the boom in the 80s. You saw the boom in the Attitude Era and the Monday Night War era. Are we on the precipice of seeing it again?
I don't know if we haven't already been seeing it for the last, let's say, 2 years, kind of since the pandemic broke.
The pandemic.
You know, the pandemic kind of set everything into a tailspin. So it kind of made everything hard to, you know, gauge because everybody was watching everything. So, I mean, you know, it'd be unfair to say, oh, yeah, we boomed in in 2020 because, you know, people were stuck at home. Everybody was able to watch anything you may have not watched for 20 years. Well, now you're stuck in front of your TV. So, of course, you're watching. But now that we're out of it, you know, and we're able to go on without our lives, the fact that you're seeing wrestling do what it's doing now, I would venture to say we've probably been in it for about a year and a half to this point now, but we're still on the upswing of it. I don't think that it definitely hasn't hit its peak. I don't think in no way, shape, or form is it losing popularity. You know, it's gaining every time you look. You know, WWE is breaking a record everything they put out right now. So
every event is sold out.
Every premium live event, yeah, they break some kind of record. You know, with viewership,
SmackDown, every Raw,
yeah, in viewership, they're breaking records that they've never broken before, which is hard to say because you know there was a time where they were getting 7 ratings, you know, on TV every Monday, but the pay-per-views may have only been getting 600,000 buys. Well, now, you know, the pay-per-views are getting more views than the events get, or than the Monday Night Raw gets at least. They're damn sure getting more than like AEW gets on a weekly basis for viewership. So, I mean, you know, when you look at that, you say and now you've got YouTube, you've got all these other social media outlets where you can grasp your wrestling content.
Right.
And hell, let's not miss the blatantly obvious. There's all these podcasts out here where everybody's talking about wrestling. So if you're interested in it, but you don't really have time to watch it, I mean, you flick on the Bookers Alliance and you listen to them talk about wrestling for 30 minutes. Well, now you're like, well, damn, I got my fix right then and there. You know, I better subscribe and listen to them boys again because they know what they're talking about.
And you got all, you know, your wrestlers doing podcasts. So the access to information is incredible versus what it used to be. Used to be the only access to information you had was the old wrestling magazine.
Yeah, you put out a dirt sheet, you know, and you read the Wrestling Observer or, you know, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and they would go into stuff. But I mean, you know, unless you were buying those every week, you know, or reading or buying 3 or 4 of them every week, you were still missing stuff, you know, because everybody has their bias in print. Everybody might not be interested in covering one guy. So you missed his stuff. You just don't know. But now you don't miss anything. You know, you go and throw it, you know, what do they say? Throw up your Google machine. You turn on your Google machine in there and you type in your favorite wrestler's name. I mean, hell, you can see your favorite wrestler from when he was in high school all the way up until today. You know what I mean? So there's no way, if you have an appetite for it, it's there for you. And I feel like everybody's feeding themselves as much as they possibly can on their wrestling. Not like Ryback, though. It's not Feed Me More.
Oh, not Feed Me More.
No, it's not Feed Me More. But I mean, they're feeding us enough right now.
Dude,
so
So much of a potential in that dude.
Dude, yeah. So maybe that's another episode we could talk about biggest bust.
Biggest bust.
Yeah, nonetheless.
Absolutely.
But yeah, oh God. No, I could wax poetic on what, when Ryback finally got his Ryback character with his gear, just thinking like, man, that guy's got heavyweight champion written all over himself. Then his brain exploded, and now all of a sudden he's like a jackass. But whatever. Nonetheless, we'll get into that a different.
And not
episode.
in a Johnny Knoxville good way.
No, not in a good way. He's oh my God, go
like
away heat.
Annoying.
Yeah, he's got go away heat now. But that's another podcast in and of itself. But
yeah, so I mean, I guess here's the question that I want to ask you, Frank. So we're recognizing that we are either in the beginning or on the precipice of another potential wrestling boom.
Yeah.
Do you think it will ever get to the level that we experienced in the two previous booms that we talked about?
I do. I don't think it'll be the same though, again, because content is consumed a different way now. Like,
correct.
You're never going to have a television show with 7 million people watching. That just doesn't exist in this world. With streaming, with TiVo, with all that good stuff.
Yep.
It ain't going to happen. You'll never have that again. But if you look at like merchandise, what they gauged that on was like merchandise sales. I feel like merchandise sales have to be eclipsing everything they've eclipsed before. I mean, just me and you together with the belts we buy, we're eclipsing, what kids used to buy in T-shirts.
Right.
We're buying 50 T-shirts a month at this point now. So, you know what I mean? When you start looking at that, there's more options, there's more accessibility.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, I saw a stat the other day that Roman has had 15 different T-shirt designs in his 3-year championship reign.
Yep. Hogan didn't have that many. Only John Cena's had that many shirts, and John Cena had a 20-year career to do it.
And John Cena, the only thing, I mean, it was the same shirt, different color.
Yeah, different colors. So yeah, if you didn't like green, you didn't buy that shirt. But if you like orange, I mean, there you go. So,
but yeah, so I do think that we are in it. I do believe that it's been going at least for the past year and a half. I do think what AEW has done to sell out Wembley, they sold out 70,000 plus tickets without even having a match announced. That is incredible.
Yeah.
That's unheard of, basically. Yeah. And again, they've only been around for a cup of coffee in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Look at what WWE is doing with PLEs this year. They've been all over the world. They've been in Saudi Arabia. They've been in the UK. They've been in Puerto Rico. Just saw where they booked their first PLE for India.
Yep.
So I mean, it's crazy how all over the world that they're going.
Yeah, I mean there's that much interest everywhere you look for them to be able to sell these tickets for. But I think what's going to give us our actual answer, because again, we're just looking at it, but I think what's going to give us the actual answer will be All In August, and then WrestleMania in Philadelphia.
Right.
After you see the numbers, so All In's already looking at 75,000 plus. WWE at this point now with the 2-night WrestleManias, they're somewhere in like the 150, 160 range.
So I was about to point that out. I mean, WWE doing a 2-night PLE in WrestleMania, that was just unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, before it had gotten to where it was 8 hours.
Yeah,
and
it was a long night.
60,000 people in the building. Well, yeah, you cut that in half. You can sell 2 sets of tickets. You were only able to sell 1 set. So, within 3 events, well, let's say 2 events, 2 nights of WrestleMania, 1 night of All In, you'll probably have somewhere in the area of 200 to 250,000 fans in buildings watching wrestling. You never heard anything like that before. No. So yeah, I think by the time All In hits, that's going to be the pinnacle of AEW up to their existence so far. And I feel like after WWE sees that happen, and let's be honest, AEW is going to make some mistakes during that event. There's going to be some faux pas in there that we're going to regret. But WWE is going to say, oh, well, we'll show them. And I feel like they're going to try and do everything they can to make Philadelphia get bigger, with it being number 40. So I feel like those 2 events, if we're not already in the boom of it, those 2 events by the end of WrestleMania Night 2 will be booming.
Competition is the best thing going right now for us wrestling fans.
We're not in the Monday Night Wars yet because there's no direct head-to-head competition, but they know each other exists, and WWE knows AEW is putting on a 75,000 person event. they're not going to just stand for that. Now they've got to find a way to achieve greater heights.
And I don't even want to use the expression yet. I was about to, but thinking about it, I don't even want to use the expression iron sharpens iron. No, I don't want to use that yet because
right now we got iron and plastic.
Right,
so
right.
AEW ain't ready to be iron.
Do they have the potential to become iron? Absolutely.
Absolutely. And they've got an unlimited budget, and they've got
I'm rooting for them.
Damn good talent pool. Yep. So, I mean, everything's in their favor. It's, again, and like we said at the beginning of this episode, they're making, they make stumbles along the way, at growing pains. That's what they're supposed to do. Once they figure those out, though, we're head to head. I mean, at this point now with the budgets, we're head to head. So wrestling can only go up for quite a while.
Yep. So, so our general consensus is, yes, we are in the next wrestling boom. It's just started. Where it goes from here, I'm hoping it goes beyond anything that it's went before.
What a great time to be a fan.
Dude, it's been an awesome ride to be a wrestling fan.
What a great time to be a fan. This is good stuff here.
Yep. So, what are your thoughts on this? If you think that we're in it, or if you think we ain't made it there yet, reach out, drop us a line on our social media platforms. Tell us your thoughts. Let us know what you're thinking. We would love to engage in conversation with you. But we appreciate you listening to today's podcast. Thank you for everything that you do for us here at the Bookers Alliance. And with that, we bid you adieu.
Deuces.
Today's podcast was produced by SBP. You can find our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Also connect with us on our social media accounts. Search for the Bookers Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.